But as teacher Frank was moving around the classroom, trying to discipline the students, the cane accidentally struck Ijoma on her eye. She let out a loud scream as pain surged through her. They reached a decision. They agreed that teacher Frank should marry Ijoma as a way to make amends for the injury he had caused her. Once upon a time, in a small village in the eastern part of Nigeria, there lived a man named Frank. Frank was a handsome man with a strong and well-built physique. He worked as a teacher at the village secondary school and was known throughout the village for his impressive appearance. Frank lived alone in a small, modest apartment in the village. He was not married and did not have any children. Every morning, Frank would carefully dress in his teacher's uniform and set out for school. He was a man of strong principles and had a reputation for being strict and demanding. Frank believed that discipline was essential for effective learning. Because of this belief, he was both respected and feared by the students. He expected his students to follow the rules diligently. If they failed to pay their school fees on time, neglected their assignments, or caused disturbance in class, Frank would not hesitate to discipline them fairly, flogging them with his cane every time. Some parents who had the means to change their children's school had already done so. They didn't like the way Frank was always disciplining the children by always flogging them. They moved their kids to other schools where they hoped the environment would be kinder and less strict. However, there were still many parents who chose to keep their children at Teacher Frank's school. They believed that despite the hardness, the education and discipline their children received were important for their future. On several occasions, the principal of Teacher Frank's school had called him into his office to warn him about the way he treated the students. The principal was concerned that Frank's methods were too harsh and that they might cause lasting harm. Despite these warnings, Teacher Frank never listened. He would always respond by saying that the children were stubborn and needed strictness to learn good behavior and morals. He believed he was doing the right thing for their development, even if it meant being tough on them. Among the students at the school was Ijoma. She was a beautiful and smart young woman who stood out for her respectfulness and kindness. Ijoma was the daughter of a farmer named Mazi Obinna. Despite the challenges she faced under Teacher Frank's strict teaching methods, Ijoma worked hard to excel in her studies. She was determined to be a better person and to make her parents proud of her achievements. One day, during one of Teacher Frank's classes, he was very angry. Many of his students had failed his exams and had done very poorly. Teacher Frank was furious about the low grades and was determined to teach all of them a harsh lesson. He wanted to make sure that the students would remember this day and learn from their mistakes. In his anger, Teacher Frank brought out his cane, which was used for punishing students. He began to strike the students who had done badly on their exams. He wanted to make them feel the weight of their failure and hoped it would scare them into doing better in the future. The classroom was filled with the sound of the cane hitting the desk and the students who cried out in pain. Ijoma was sitting behind one of the students who was being punished. She had been trying her best to stay out of trouble and focus on her studies. But as Teacher Frank was moving around the classroom, trying to discipline the students, the cane accidentally struck Ijoma on her eye. She let out a loud scream as pain surged through her and blood began to gush down her face. Immediately, her classmates rushed to her side and they quickly took her to the local hospital. At the hospital, the doctors examined her carefully. After some time, they confirmed that one of Ijeoma's eye had been badly damaged. This was a devastating blow to Ijeoma, and it was a tragic moment for everyone who cared about her. The once beautiful Ijeoma had now lost the use of one of her eyes. When Ijeoma's parents, Mazi Obina and his wife, heard the news, they were overwhelmed with grief and anger. They were not only heartbroken for the pain their daughter was suffering, but also worried about the impact of her injury on her future. They knew that the injury would make it very difficult for Ijeoma to find a husband, as many people in the village would be reluctant to marry someone with one eye. In their distress, they decided they needed to take action. They went to see the village chiefs and elders to report what had happened and to seek for their help. They hoped that the village leaders would understand the seriousness of the situation and decide on the best course of action to get justice for Ijeoma and ensure that Teacher Frank would be held accountable for his actions. The elders and the chief gathered for an important meeting to discuss what should be done about the situation with Teacher Frank and Ijeoma. They sat down in the village square, talking and debating for a long time. After much discussion, they reached a decision. They agreed that Teacher Frank should marry Ijeoma as a way to make amends for the injury he had caused her. They believed this was the only fair solution to ensure that he faced the consequences of his actions. Once the decision was made, the elders and Ijeoma's parents called Teacher Frank to come and hear what they had decided. When Teacher Frank arrived, the elders and Ijeoma's parents told him about their agreement. They explained that he had to marry Ijeoma as a form of justice for the harm he had done. Teacher Frank was very unhappy about this decision. He was both angry and sad. He protested, saying, "I have apologized over and over again. I have begged for forgiveness, and I am truly very sorry for what happened. But please, I cannot marry her. I do not love her, and I do not want this marriage." Despite his pleas, the elders and Ijeoma's parents refused to listen. They insisted that since he was responsible for the injury, he must accept the consequences of his actions. Reluctantly, Teacher Frank had no choice but to agree to the marriage. He realized that he had to face the outcome of what he had done. The elders arranged for a small and modest wedding for Teacher Frank and Ijeoma. The ceremony was simple, with only a few people in attendance. After the wedding, Ijeoma struggled with her new reality. It was very hard for her to accept the fact that she now had only one eye. The injury had changed her life in many painful ways, and she found it difficult to come in terms with this new aspect of her existence. Teacher Frank, on the other hand, was filled with feelings of guilt and anger. He felt guilty for what he had done to Ijeoma and angry at the villagers and the elders for forcing him into this marriage. He could not escape the weight of his actions and resented the situation he was in. Life for them as a married couple was very difficult. Teacher Frank and Ijeoma lived together like strangers. He rarely spoke to her and never ate the food she prepared for him. Each day, he would leave very early in the morning and come back late at night after Ijeoma had gone to bed. When Ijeoma tried to express her pain or frustration, Teacher Frank would tell her that she should blame her parents and the villagers for forcing him into the marriage. His words only made her cry alone at night, feeling more isolated and heartbroken. Ijeoma would sometimes go back to her parents' house to cry and complain about her life with Teacher Frank. When she was there, she would sit with her mother and father, telling them how badly her husband treated her. She would explain that Teacher Frank didn't show her any love and he barely spoke to her. She felt hurt and confused, and she needed to share her feelings with someone who cared about her. Her parents listened to her with heavy hearts, but they always told her the same thing. "You must keep trying, Ijeoma," they said gently. "Show him that you care for him. Be patient." One day he will come around and start to show you the love you deserve. They believed that time would heal the situation and that teacher Frank would eventually change his ways. Ijoma's friend Oge would always visit her from time to time. Oge was a dear friend who cared deeply for Ijoma and could see how unhappy she was. Every time Oge came over, she would find Ijoma sitting sadly in their small house, her face reflecting the sadness she felt inside. Oge's heart would ache seeing her friend in such pain, and she felt a deep sorrow for Ijoma's situation. One day, Oge arrived at Ijoma's house and found her sitting alone, crying softly. Oge sat down beside her and said, Ijoma, don't tell me you are crying about teacher Frank again. I have told you to stop crying over him. You should let go of trying to please him. If he truly loves you, he will come around when he is ready. Her words were meant to comfort Ijoma, but she knew that her friend was deeply hurt by the way teacher Frank treated her. Ijoma wiped her tears and looked at Oge, her eyes filled with sadness. I am so tired, Oge, she said with a sigh. I didn't bring this upon myself. I had big dreams and plans for my future, but teacher Frank's carelessness had caused this damage to my eye. Now he won't even talk to me, and I don't know how to make things better. Her voice trembled as she spoke, revealing the weight of her disappointment and frustration. Oge took a deep breath and looked at her friend with determination. My dear Ijoma, she said gently, I know how hard this is for you, and that's why I'm here today with a plan. It's a plan that might change everything for you. It's not difficult at all, and it might be just what you need. Ijoma looked at Oge with glimmer of hope in her eyes. What is the plan? She asked eagerly, wanting to know if there was a way out of her misery. Oge smiled and began to explain her idea. You have been trying so hard to get teacher Frank's attention and to please him, but it's not working. So now it's time for a change. You need to stop trying so hard to win his love. Instead, you should focus on yourself. Take care of yourself and give yourself the attention you need. Wear nice clothes, go out more often, and do the things that make you happy. Trust me, if you do this, Teacher Frank will see that you are strong and independent, and he might start to rethink his behavior towards you. Ijoma listened carefully, her heart lifting as she thought about the possibility of a change. She began to feel a sense of hope that maybe this plan could help her find some peace and maybe even make Teacher Frank see her in a different light. Oge's words were like a breath of fresh air for Ijoma, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose as she considered the steps she could take to improve her life. Ijoma took Oge's advice to heart and spent a long time thinking about the plan. After much reflection, she realized that it wasn't a bad idea at all. In fact, it might be the best chance she had to improve her situation. So, she decided to follow Oge's advice and start focusing on herself for a change. From that day forward, Ijoma began to take care of herself much more. She went to the village markets and bought new clothes that were bright and beautiful. She also bought some colorful beads to wear as accessories and decided to get new hairstyles that made her look even more lovely. She started dressing up every day and made an effort to look her best, feeling a sense of joy and excitement that she hadn't felt in a long time. In the past, whenever she made food for Teacher Frank and he didn't eat it, she would call him repeatedly and cry, feeling hurt and rejected. But now, if Teacher Frank ignored the food she prepared, she would simply eat it herself or take it back to the kitchen without making a fuss. She had learned to care for herself rather than pleading for his attention. Ijoma also started to go out with her friend Oge more often. She would visit the village square, enjoy the market stalls, and share laughter and fun. This was a new experience for Ijoma, as she had rarely gone out for enjoyment before. She found out that spending time with Oge and exploring the village helped her feel happier and more confident. Teacher Frank noticed that Ijoma was spending less time at home. Each day when he came back from work, he found the house quieter and saw that she was not there as much as she used to be. He also couldn't ignore how beautiful she had become over the past weeks. Her new clothes, her fresh hairstyles, and the happy glow in her eyes made him wonder what had changed in her life. He began to feel curious and a bit uneasy about why she was so different. One evening, after a fun day at the village square with Oge, they were walking back home, chatting and laughing about all the little things they had seen and done. As they walked, a car suddenly pulled up beside them. A handsome man stepped out of the car and approached the two friends. He politely asked Oge if she could give him a moment alone with Ijoma. Oge was surprised but agreed to give them some privacy. The man introduced himself as Chinedu. He explained that he lived in the city of Lagos but had come to the village to visit his parents. He said that he had seen Ijoma at the village square and had been impressed by her beauty. He wanted to get to know her better. Ijoma was surprised that someone like Chinedu, who seemed so well-to-do and charming, would be interested in her. Chinedu offered to take her to her house. She smiled and accepted. Chinedu drove Ijoma home, and as she got out of the car, Teacher Frank saw the two of them together. He was shocked and felt a pang of jealousy as he watched the exchange. He was surprised to see Ijoma with another man, and it stirred up feelings of regret and envy within him. When Ijoma entered the house, Teacher Frank, who had been silent for months, suddenly spoke up. "Ijoma," he said sharply, "who was that man? Don't you know you are a married woman? Why did you let another man drive you in his car?" Ijoma was taken aback by his sudden interest and couldn't help but feel a bit of happiness that he was finally speaking to her. But she quickly composed herself and replied calmly, "He is just a friend, Teacher Frank. We were only talking and he gave me a ride home." Her response was simple, but it was enough to make Teacher Frank pause and think. For the first time in a long while, he began to wonder about the changes in Ijoma and what they might mean for their relationship. The next morning, as Teacher Frank was about to leave the house for school, he happened to look outside and noticed the same car that had brought Ijoma home the previous night. He was surprised to see it parked outside their house again. Curiosity got the better of him, so he decided to go back inside to find out what was going on. When he stepped back into the house, he was taken aback by the sight of Ijoma. She was dressed up in her most beautiful clothes, looking elegant and happy. Her hair was styled in a way that made her look even more attractive, and she wore the best beads and accessories she had recently bought. She was about to leave the house, and it was clear that she was excited about where she was going. Teacher Frank's eyes widened, and he couldn't help but feel a surge of jealousy. "Ijoma," he called out to her, "where do you think you are going, looking so nice? Why are you getting into that car again?" Ijoma turned to face him and replied with a hint of defiance in her voice, "I'm going out with Chinedu. He wants me to show him around the town today." She spoke calmly but with a sense of freedom that she had not shown before. Teacher Frank was taken aback again by her response. His jealousy turned into anger as he said, "You are a married woman, Ijoma. You should not be going out with this so-called friend of yours. You have a husband, and you should stay at home instead of running around with another man." Ijoma looked at him with a mixture of sadness and resolve. "Frank," she said firmly, "since we have been married, this is the first time you have spoken to me about anything. You don't talk to me at all, and you barely eat the food I prepare for you. What do you want me to do? Just stay at home and cry all day? I will not do that anymore. I deserve to be happy too, and I will find my own way." Without waiting for a response, Ijoma walked out of the house and got into Chinedu's car. As she settled into the seat, Chinedu greeted her warmly and asked how she was doing. Ijoma took a deep breath and decided it was time to share her story. She began to tell Chinedu about her life, explaining how she had lost her eye and how Teacher Frank had been forced into marrying her. She talked about the unhappiness she had felt throughout their marriage and how she had been trying to make the best of a bad situation. Chinedu listened with sympathy as Ijoma spoke. He felt a deep of sense of sorrow for her and was touched by her honesty. I am so sorry to hear about everything you have been through, Ijoma, he said gently. It sounds like you have had a very difficult time. What do you want to do now? How can I help you? Ijoma shook her head, feeling a bit uncertain. I am not sure about what to do, she admitted. I am still trying to figure out how to make things better for myself. I never thought I would be in this position, and I don't know what the future holds. Chinedu looked at her with sincere concern and said, I really like you, Ijoma, and I want to be with you and take good care of you. I want to make you happy and give you the life you deserve. But I know that you are married, and that complicates things. Ijoma's heart felt a mixture of hope and sadness as she listened to Chinedu's words. She had never imagined that someone would care for her in this way, especially after everything she had endured. She was grateful for Chinedu's kindness. As they drove through the village, Chinedu continued to talk to Ijoma, asking her about her favorite places and showing genuine interest in her life. Ijoma felt a sense of relief and comfort as she shared her thoughts and dreams with him. For the first time in a long time, she felt that someone understood her and wanted to help her find happiness. Teacher Frank was alone in the house, pacing back and forth with anger and jealousy. He was feeling a storm of emotions that he couldn't control. As he walked around, he couldn't stop thinking about Ijoma and the way she had looked so happy with Chinedu. He felt a deep sense of jealousy and regret. He had never thought of Ijoma in this way before, but now he found himself wanting her to be only his. He was telling himself that she was his wife and that no other man should come near her. The idea of another man being interested in Ijoma filled him with a strange of mix of anger and desire. He realized he was beginning to develop feelings for her, feelings he had never acknowledged before. When Ijoma returned home, she was stunned by what she saw. Frank had prepared a delicious meal, something he had never done before. The kitchen smelled wonderful, and Frank was standing there with a big smile on his face. It was such a change from his usual cold demeanor that Ijoma was taken aback. What's happening here? Ijoma asked, still trying to understand what she was seeing. Frank, why are you cooking for me and smiling? This is so strange. Are you okay? Frank looked at her and said, Oh, nothing much, my dear wife. I am just making a special dinner for you because I want you to be happy. I have been thinking a lot and I realized that I need to show you how much you mean to me. Ijoma couldn't believe her ears. What? Are you serious? You, Frank, this is so unlike you. You barely talk to me and now you are being so kind. What has changed? Frank took a deep breath and said, I am very sorry, Ijoma. I know I was wrong before. I was out of my mind. But now I am back to my senses. I have been thinking and reflecting on everything that has happened. I see now that you deserve to be treated with love and respect. When she heard these words, Ijoma couldn't help but laugh. The sudden shift in Frank's attitude was so surprising and unexpected that it made her laugh all night. It was the first time in a long while that she felt such joy. The laughter felt good, and she was happy to finally see a change in Frank's behavior. The next day, Ijoma went to her friend Oge's house to share the news about Frank's surprising change. She arrived and found Oge sitting in her small living room, and as soon as she saw her friend, she bursted out with excitement. Oge, you will not believe what just happened, Ijoma exclaimed. Frank had changed completely. He actually made me dinner last night and told me I was beautiful. I am still in shock. Oge's eyes widened with surprise. Really? That's amazing, she said, laughing. I told you that the plan would work. I knew that if you stopped paying attention to him and focused on yourself, it would make a big difference. I guess seeing Chinedu's interest in you made Frank realize that he was losing you. Oge paused for a moment and asked, but now that Frank is being nice, what are you going to do about Chinedu? Ijoma sat down and looked thoughtful. That's the problem, Oge. I am so confused. I don't know what to do. I really like Chinedu, but I am married to Frank. I never wanted to marry Frank in the first place. I didn't love him at all. I only married him because of the accident and what my family forced me into. But now, Chinedu treats me with so much kindness and love. He sees me for who I am and not just as a person with one eye. I don't know what the right choice is. Oge listened carefully and nodded. I understand, Ijoma. It's a very difficult situation. You didn't plan for any of this, and your feelings are complicated. You have to think about what will make you the happiest in the long run. It's okay to feel unsure. Take your time to figure things out. Ijoma sighed and said, yes, I think I will take some time to think about it. Chinedu has been so kind to me, and I feel something for him. But at the same time, I need to be fair to Frank. Even though he was never kind to me, it's such a mess. Oge reached out and took Ijoma's hands. Whatever you decide, I will be here for you. You deserve to be happy, and you will figure this out. Just remember to listen to your heart and follow what feels right for you. Ijoma smiled weakly, grateful for her friend's support. She knew that she had a lot to think about, and it helped to have someone who cared about her and was willing to stand by her through these difficult decisions. Oge listened to Ijoma's worries and offered her advice with a gentle smile. Ijoma, she began, I think you should follow your heart. It might not be easy, but you should at least try. You've given Frank so many chances, but he missed those opportunities. Now it's time for you to think about what you truly want. It's time to talk to him about your feelings and your plans. Ijoma nodded, feeling a bit more confident after talking with Oge. She thanked her friend for the advice and then went back home to face Frank. As she walked into the house, she noticed that Frank seemed genuinely happy to see her. He smiled warmly and came over to give her a hug. Ijoma, I am so glad you are back, he said with a cheerful tone. How was your day? Ijoma gave him a polite smile, but knew she had to address the important matter. Frank, we need to talk about something serious, she said. Her voice was calm but firm. Please sit down. I need to explain what's been going on with me. Frank looked concerned and sat down on the edge of the chair, waiting for Ijoma to speak. What is it, Ijoma? He asked, trying to hide the nervousness in his voice. Taking a deep breath, Ijoma began. Frank, over the past few days, I have developed feelings for Chinedu. He also loves me and wants to be with me. I never expected this to happen, but it did. You see, you have not been kind to me. You never talked to me or showed me any affection. You spent your time with other women, and it took someone else showing interest in me for you to finally notice me. Frank's face turned pale as he listened to Ijoma's words. He knew deep down that she was speaking the truth. He felt a pang of regret for how he had treated her. Ijoma, he said slowly, I am so sorry for everything. I see now that I made a lot of mistakes. I want to change. I will treat you better, love you and care for you. Please don't leave me. I will make things right. Ijoma looked at him with sadness in her eyes. Frank, I have already made up my mind. I have found someone who loves me for who I am, despite my imperfections. I want to be with Chinedu. So what I need from you is to go to the villagers and my family and tell them that you no longer want to be married to me. Tell them that I have found love and that the love has also found me. Frank was deeply upset by her decision. He pleaded with her over and over again. Please, Ijoma, he begged, give me another chance. I will be a good husband and partner. I promise to treat you with the love and care you deserve. I will change for you. Don't do this. Let's work things out together, he said. But Ijoma's mind was made up. She had suffered for too long, and she knew that this was the best path for her future. I am very sorry, Frank, she said gently but firm. I have already made up my decision. I need to follow my heart and be with Chinedu. With a heavy heart, Ijoma prepared to visit her parents to tell them about the situation. She arrived at their house feeling a mix of nervousness and hope. Her parents greeted her warmly and invited her to sit down. Welcome, my daughter, her mother said with a smile. How are you doing? Ijoma took a deep breath and began explaining everything. She told them about Chinedu and how he had shown her love and kindness. She talked about how Frank had been unkind to her and how she had made the decision to be with Chinedu instead. As Ijoma spoke, her parents listened carefully. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then her father spoke up. My daughter, we are very glad to hear that you have found someone who truly cares about you. We have seen how unhappy you have been, and it hurt us to see you suffer. If Chinedu loves you and wants to be with you, we support your decision. We will speak to the villagers and let them know that you are leaving Frank to be with someone who will make you happy. Ijoma felt a wave of relief wash over her. She was very grateful for her parents' support and understanding. Thank you, Mama and Papa, she said, her voice filled with emotions. I am so grateful for your support. I know that this is the right decision for me, and I am excited for what the future holds. Her parents embraced her, happy to see their daughter finding a chance at true happiness. They agreed to help her with the next step, and together they began to plan how they would break the news to the villagers. That evening, Ijoma felt a sense of peace for the first time in a long while. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to embrace this new chapter of her life with hope and optimism. With heavy hearts, Frank and Ijoma agreed to dissolve their marriage. It was a sad and difficult decision for both of them, but they knew it was for the best. The villagers gathered to witness the end of their union, and the ceremony was done respectfully. After the final formalities, Ijoma packed her belongings and moved out of Frank's house. She returned to her parents' home, where she waited for Chinedu to come and perform the traditional rites for their marriage. Days went by and finally, Chinedu arrived at Ijoma's parents' house with his family and friends. They were all dressed in their best native attires, bringing gifts and offering warm greetings. The ceremony was joyful and full of celebration. Ijoma and Chinedu were surrounded by their loved ones as they performed the traditional rites and exchanged vows. It was a beautiful day, and Ijoma felt a deep sense of happiness and relief as she looked at Chinedu. They were finally starting their life together. A few days after the ceremony, Chinedu and Ijoma packed up their things and traveled to Lagos, where Chinedu lived. Ijoma was amazed when she saw the beautiful house that Chinedu had. The house was large and elegant, with spacious rooms and beautiful decorations. It was clear that Chinedu was both wealthy and very educated. The house was filled with comfort and luxury, and Ijoma felt excited and grateful to begin this new chapter of her life. Chinedu took care of Ijoma with love and attention. He promised to cherish her and make her happy every day. He showed her around Lagos, introducing her to his friends and taking her to lovely places. Ijoma was happy and content in her new life. She felt like she was finally living the life she had dreamed of, with a man who truly loved and cared for her. Meanwhile, back in the village, Frank returned to his job as a teacher at the local school. The experience of losing Ijoma had changed him. He began to treat his students with more kindness and patience. He no longer used harsh methods to discipline them. Instead, he tried to be a better teacher and mentor. He understood now how important it was to be compassionate and fair. Whenever Ijoma and Chinedu visited the village for holiday, Frank would see them together and feel a deep sense of regret. He would watch them from a distance, seeing how happy they were and how they treated each other. He remembered the days when he had been unkind to Ijoma and wished he could go back and change his actions. But there was no way to undo the past. All he could do was reflect on his mistakes and hope to be a better person in the future. As Ijoma and Chinedu enjoyed their life in Lagos, Frank was left to live with his regrets. He saw how different his life could have been if he had only treated Ijoma with more love and respect. The sight of their happiness made him realize that the value of the love he had lost, and he spent many days wishing he had made different choices. Thank you for watching. This is Tales by Joyful. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also turn on your post notification so you'll be notified whenever we post another story. See you next time. Bye.